Tom Whittam. Is that pronounced correctly?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. I mean, thanks for coming all this way to start with.
Thanks for having me.
It's all right. I've got a bit of a blurb off your LinkedIn. see how much it still relates. But I've just found out you used to be in the army as well. So maybe we'll touch on that. We'll see where we go. But with over 15 years of agile and waterfall delivery experience, you're a specialist in helping organizations work effectively to maximize the ROI with their teams. You've most recently been the head of delivery at a consultancy called Amy. You've got experience with startups and enterprise environments, local and central government, and multiple business sectors. You value working smarter, not harder, and strive to develop collaborative, proactive, and high-performing self-managed teams who are enabled to work autonomously, self-governed, in self-managed. They self-manage themselves in a focused, forward-thinking business. That vaguely still correct?
It feels like the professional way of saying has been around the block, jack of all trades, sort of thing, probably. Yeah.
So briefly, like what did you do in the army?
So I was an engineer actually, so tanks, and I was in for about 4.5 years. Realised that for me, in fact, actually joined because my mum laughed at me when I told her I was going to join. So I just sort of belligerently went through it. So sorry, mum, love you, mum, and
subscribe, mum.
Yeah, subscribe, mum, and then did it, and there were things that I liked and didn't like about it, right? So it was a learning experience fundamentally. I was young at the time, 17. So for me, it was loved the camaraderie, the teamwork, and despised the rigor, the rigidness, and inflexibility of things, and also I think certain behaviours and attitudes as well, in certain areas I struggled with.
Was it straight into tech afterwards, or project management, or what?
It was a little bit of a finding my feet. Actually, very difficult, I think, for a lot of veterans I've personally spoken with, to kind of come back into civilian life.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of finding my feet, went through a few various roles, but all of them had sort of that project management experience with it. So kind of gathered that experience and worked for some agencies in the marketing space, and that was a lot of stakeholder management, client management, customer management, relationship building, and sort of that ability to manage a project and ability to build relationships sort of helped me fall into someone taking a punt on me as a product manager, which then was my first sort of foray into Agile.
Yeah.
Or, formally, I suppose. And then from there, really got on really well with it. Managed to forge a career path out of it. Moved to work with consultancies, which is similar to what I would refer to as an agency, like a marketing agency, for example. Moving into consultancies, very similar. They just spend a bit less on taking the customer out. Really, is the difference.
A few less jollies.
Yeah, a few less jollies. And then we would, and into consultancies, and just have done really, really well. Just enjoyed it, enjoyed working with people, enjoyed solving problems, and getting things done. Really has been something I've enjoyed from that, and then managed to get into a head of delivery position, and then now I am starting my own business.
Yeah, we'll dive into that.
We will do, yeah. I'll save the shameless plug.
That's literally what you're here for. I'll circle back then by starting off by reading a post that you wrote. So, when people say they need to adopt Scrum to make it work for them, what they actually mean is that they tried it, didn't like what they saw, and so changed it so they feel a bit better about themselves. Scrum is a mirror. If it doesn't work for you, then you might be right, but you probably just need a lot of improvement. If this is the case, start with baby steps, small things you can implement to make life better, measure the impact, and celebrate your success. What triggered that post?
So I think what I was trying to say there was, and probably what triggered that post was, I think everybody thinks that they're special. When in fact they aren't special. They're just identifying the constraint to them. So this won't work for us because of X. And it's the X that is actually the constraint that you need to either work within or leverage for the thing to work. And instead of trying to, and this is, I think, an attitude behavior maybe common in enterprise organizations especially, but I think most people just like this generally is this won't work for us, so we won't even try it. Instead of like going, actually, let's try something different and see if it benefits us or not, and just experiment maybe. And it's, I think, being exposed to not being very good is something that petrifies probably all of us, to be honest.
None of us like our shortcomings being identified.
And nobody knows them better than ourselves, as well, right? So, yeah.
Well, being ginger, I'm a walking shortcoming, to be honest. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I think, I don't know, from my experience, you may agree or disagree or have similar views or not, but when you, especially in bigger organizations, bigger corporates, I always say to them, I could put a group of you, if we're talking about a bank, two banks, two building societies, whatever, I could put a group of you lot in the same room as a group from another bank. You'd all be saying the same thing. You're not like, it's not unique.
No.
You're just big, cumbersome places that need.
I mean, I could put a group of people from a water company in with a group of people from a insurance company in, and they'd say the same things. Yeah, it's really interesting how unspecial people are, or businesses are. Not necessarily people, because people make the business, but
we're all special, we're all unique, and we're all little treasures.
Yeah.
But organizations, I think they over put themselves on a pedestal sometimes because they have to, because that is their point of view.
I think it's a little bit of a symptom as well of like getting to the top, and it's like, we're number one and we're special, and I think it's nice to be told you're special as well, right? So I think it's a symptom that happens over a long period of time.
Cool. I saw that post and I thought, that'd be interesting to pick the scab on that. As a head of delivery, what's the day in the life of a head of delivery for those who don't know or would like to know more or are aspiring to be a head of delivery? What does it look like in a day?
So I can talk to being a head of delivery at a consultancy. So that would be, my day I would try to break it into two parts really. One would be the reactive part. And the other would be the proactive part. And
I like that. What does that mean?
So I would try and the time that I would dedicate to those parts would vary depending on the severity of what I was reacting to. But it would be typically around in the reactive bit, supporting, helping customers or teams with any issues they have. And almost as head of delivery, you're almost like the final boss for escalation as well, right? So we've tried this. So you normally get some of the more spicy issues and challenges to kind of support people with, really. And so that's kind of the interesting part of it, the reactive part of it. And the issues would vary as well, right? So as a consultancy, you would be delivering potentially could be a discovery project. It could be a program of work. It could be a project, a waterfall project. It could be a BAU Agile delivery in a Scrum team. So it could be a variety of different things, and that obviously keeps things interesting as well. And then the proactive bit of it is actually investing in practice and people. So going how and process as well. It could be iterating processes to make them work more efficiently, or to support us moving forward. So it's really, that's the minimizing the reactive bit. It's going, where do I need to minimize risk in the delivery of our work, and what's the best way to do this to ensure that we get the basics consistently right across the board, so that the majority of the mistakes that happen or issues that happen aren't repeated, or are repeated less frequently. And that's the challenge there.
And because people are like genuinely interested in this stuff, when I say, what does a day look like? Is there stuff you have, like, what's the self-care aspect? Do you cold plunge? Do you like pick hairs out of your beard to teach you discipline? Like what do you do pre-post to make sure you're the best version of yourself at work?
If I had a routine, it would be along the lines of drop the kids off at school, try not to shout at them, try to have breakfast.
Yeah.
Try to do some form of exercise, and then work.
Yeah.
I don't really subscribe to having a routine, and routines making you great sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. That's real life, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't have time for a routine, really.
Fair enough. What does delivery mean to you, and what does good delivery look like?
So delivery to me is reaching a destination in a timely manner. And what I mean by that is, if we define what delivery is, it's getting from A to B. So knowing your destination is like really important. Where are we trying to get to? And that could be depending on the situation, it could be an outcome. It could be moving the needle on a metric. It could even be a collection of scope. So, I'm not gonna say that Agile is perfect for everything. Sometimes, we're better suited. The complexity is so little that we're better suited to just cracking, delivering the thing, getting it out. And then I say in a timely manner, because for me, speed is probably one of our like critical things to get right. It doesn't mean that we forego quality, for example, or cost, and things like using, old school iron triangle terminology. But those things are still important. But the faster we ship something, the earlier we can get feedback, the earlier we can get, we can reduce risk, because we have proven or disproven that something works. So we're learning using empiricism. And I think that then leads into, what does good delivery look like? So if we look at like the traits of what good delivery is, we want to minimize risk. And I don't mean that by having quality gates, but I mean that by being transparent, having really good communication, really good relationships, because you want healthy conflict within your teams, being able to have feedback loops in place, so delivering stuff at a reasonable rate so that you can get feedback in time to determine if you need to course correct or move forward. So again, that's really, really important to minimize risk. And we want to understand our ROI as a team, right? So how are we returning on the investment that's been made in us? An Agile team is expensive. It is. But if you're delivering value that outweighs that expense, then who cares, right? And so it's important that teams know what their contribution is to the organization from that perspective. And it's also important for them to understand if they aren't contributing, so that they can do something about it. So again, transparency is really, really important. The ability to say no. So being focused and steadfast and aligned to what's important as well. So I think good delivery is more like good behaviors, and good attributes as a team, and as a collection of people, and how you're supported as well by the organization.
You said something there about healthy conflict within teams.
Yeah.
How does one go about creating an environment where that can be the case?
So it's important, like in order to achieve like healthy conflict, it's important that people have some sort of a relationship with each other that's beyond transactional. So there has to be some sort of comfortability within the group that they feel like they can talk to one another about the problems they're having, or issues they're having with one another, or with the process, or with the tooling, or with the organization. And then they feel like they also have to see that something happens as a result of that as well. So if I was putting myself in the position of a Scrum Master or an Agile coach, what I'd want is an environment where people get on or respect each other professionally and therefore can talk to each other. So what do I have in place that allows them to do that? From a maybe a framework perspective, like a retrospective as an example. But also, what have I done to break down some of those more professional barriers? And that might be my personal go-to is let's all go out for dinner, or let's all go out for lunch. Drink if you want to, don't drink if you don't want to, but let's just not talk about work for 5 minutes and just get to know each other in an environment that's away from the office. Face-to-face time, which super important. I'm a big advocate for remote working, but you still need that face-to-face time to create true relationships with people.
Is there in your mind, again, these are opinions, not facts, obviously.
Yeah.
Is there a split in your mind that, in your experience, works?
I don't know. Like it varies for me on the people. So I could think about one of my teams. Like I could go and see them every month.
Yeah.
Go for lunch, go for dinner, and then we conduct all business remotely.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily about, I have to go in the office and sit next to somebody and
sit on Teams for the day.
Exactly. Yeah. I can just make sure I'm just getting some FaceTime with them. Or it could even be like, I go into the office, I'm there if you want to be in the office, but if I'm not in, don't worry about it. Or if you're not in, don't worry about it. It's absolutely fine. Because that, again, helps you build relationships with other people. So it could be that you have a constraint in your system or an impediment, and you're like, well, this is dragging on now and it's really getting in the way, and I need to talk to X person, and they're a bit more senior in the organization, and I need to engineer an opportunity to go and talk to them, and that might need to be a face-to-face opportunity where they're 100% focused on the conversation, they're in the room, and allows us to have a conversation which enables the constraint to be altered, removed, something like that. So again, the face-to-face time is valuable for things like that as well.
Yeah, cool. Metrics are for conversations, not confrontation.
Yeah.
Your words. What does that mean?
So I say this in the form of, or in the context of measuring team performance. So I think metrics are super healthy, super helpful. But if they're implemented in a way that gets people's backs up or feels like it's aimed at them, it's personal, then that can cause confrontation. It can cause a really unhealthy friction in environments, which can, especially in enterprise organizations, it's almost like a hive.
Yeah.
If someone hears about something and they don't like it, that's going to spread like wildfire before like it's being communicated properly out to the group.
Are there any particular metrics that you've found send people up like a bottle of pop more than others? Pop is fizzy drink for you Southerners listening, by the way.
I knew what you meant. I think for me, I can call on. I can call to a more recent experience, to be honest. So the leadership team wanted to understand how teams were performing. They needed to have some sort of metric to use, which they could, look to move the dial on potentially. And they went through a whole heap of metrics. And the one of the metrics they decided on was cycle time.
Yeah.
And they were like, we're going to use cycle time. We're going to We're going to monitor how long it takes something to be delivered from A to B, basically to done. All right, cool. Actually, a really harmless metric, a really valuable metric, useful. Lagging indicator, yes, but a useful metric. And it sort of happened. And then the teams were like, oh, well, we need to move, the teams got really like stressed about it, and really like, and it turned out that not everybody really understood what it meant through multiple layers of the organization. And the teams then felt like, oh, we're actually being targeted as people about our performance, because the next level of this is they'll do cycle time per person, and it's allowing people's minds to wander and not really understanding the point of it. And it's like, well, actually, if we're trying to be an efficient team, in reality, we're working in Scrum in this scenario. What we want to be able to do is complete anything we start within a sprint. That's really what we're just trying to gather is, are we completing work that we start within a sprint? And, if we're looking at sub, 10 days or lower, then we're like, okay, that's pretty good because we're counting our 10 working days in there if we're doing a 2-week sprint. And if we're looking at, say, 11 days plus, we could say 14 days, but that's going to include the weekends. And so, so if we're looking at 15 days plus, then let's say, we're going, something's not necessarily quite right here, right?
Just change the sprint to 3 weeks.
Exactly, perfect. Done.
Completed it.
And this is the thing I think as well, is if people feel like they're being attacked, they can manipulate their behavior, right?
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Like that was a joke.
So we'll take as your DevOps, for example. We'll take this product backlog item in. I'll start working on it. And then what I'll do is I'll update the status to in progress or committed 2 or 3 days after I've started work on it. And then I'll mark it to done, and it says I've done it in 7 days, even though I've done it in 10.
Game in the system.
Exactly. And people just try and game the system if they feel like, they're being targeted. And so it's a little bit more about the environment that you're putting and go, actually, really what I want to know is the cycle time over 14 days? And then can I tie that in with other metrics such as WIP, and then go work in progress, and then go, actually, if we dropped our work in progress, your cycle time will lower because you're not working on as many things, right? And it's that understanding going, oh, right, so actually you're telling us that potentially we could do less work to achieve the desired outcome and be rewarded for that. Yeah, absolutely, because we want to work in a sustainable way. Whereas if that's not explained to them, then they could go, oh, well, I need to work harder and get burnt out to achieve that metric so that I'm not punished.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit about like, I just want to have a talk about this, a discussion about this. Is everything okay? Are you all right? Do you need any support? Should we break this down a bit more? And what levers can we then pull to achieve the desired outcome? But when it's on its own, it makes it very, very difficult.
Yeah, it's the framing, isn't it? It's just data. It's just zeros and ones.
Absolutely.
And it's up to us what we decide to do with it. Hello, folks. Sorry to interrupt this video, but if you have got this far, it would really help if you did subscribe to the channel. Because it's face-to-face, it makes convincing people a lot easier to travel up all the way to Liverpool to record in this lovely studio. So, like I said, please subscribe, and thanks for watching.
And it's mad the amount of people that probably don't even measure their performance, or don't even know where to start measuring their performance as well. I think that's another basic that we go. I think it's actually quite interesting. Like, it's like the amount of projects that you've maybe worked on or organizations that you've walked into and they've delivered something, and then they don't go back and measure if that would actually achieve the original business case.
Yeah, so we have more traditional projects. They'll have a wash up or I don't know the Prince 2. I've forgotten the terminology for it. An end of project thing. And
I can't remember.
Yeah,
Prince
and
2, but
it's like,
so much stuff.
It's done. It's done now. What's the point?
Yeah,
we're probably not going to do that project again.
Yeah, but it's weird because I think one of the things that big organizations do to minimize risk, keep their place at the top. One of them is like they lean on the more tangible things like process or job descriptions or deliverables, right? So like, scope's really tangible, really easy to measure if you've delivered something or haven't delivered something. And they lose sight of the fact that actually the important thing is, does that thing make a difference or drive the difference that you've decided to, you want it to make?
It goes back to that iron triangle thinking you were talking about.
Yeah.
You can do it within budget, on time, deliver all the scope, but if no one's using it, what's the point?
Yeah, and also when do they deliver it on time, budget, and right? Like, but yeah, and that's one of the problems that businesses have, like capex. Right, let's talk about capital expenditure. Well, in order for us to invest in you to deliver something, we need you to provide us with a business case of the thing that you want to deliver, the value it's going to give us back. And so they'll create this really big business case, and they'll get £2 million of funding, let's say, and to deliver X amount of items. And as part of that negotiation of the business case, more items would have gone into it. Not a technical person has seen this business case. Mm-hmm. Nobody has an idea about how that's going to be delivered. And then it gets signed off. And it's like, you've got, 12 months to deliver it. And they burn half the money spinning up a team and designing it. And then they've got 6 months left and all of the scope left to deliver. And the whole reason they were there in the first place was gone. And then they end up extending the scope. And eventually something gets delivered and nobody talks about it again because it was a sunk cost fallacy or whatever it is, right? Like, it's like, we've invested so much money in this now, it can't fail.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like the sort of thing that like a large organization will do to minimize risk. But actually they're shooting themselves in the foot. So it's like good intentions, bad execution is how I would sort of describe it, right?
Yeah. Is there one of each? Is there a metric? If you only had to use one metric,
right,
which one would you choose? And if you had to burn one and never use it with a team again, what would it be?
So I'm not. If I'd burn one, get rid of one, I think I'd go down the route of burning something like velocity, something like that.
Yeah. How come?
I just think there are better things out there. And I think it's a common one. It's a contentious one. I just think there are better things out there to use as a predictor.
You're talking about story point velocity, or just
we can talk about story point velocity. Yeah, I mean, let's add a little extra spice into it. Sure. But
correct me if I'm wrong. You might have just been talking about.
Yeah. No. I mean, I just think velocity's fine, but you could use it in the absence of all else. I don't think that it's horses for courses, isn't it, at the end of the day? But for me, there are better options out there, out of the box, that you can use that are greater at forecasting and predictability and making you predictable. So,
which one would you choose if you had to plant your flag in one?
If I had to go for a hard metric, like a tangible metric, so quantitative, I probably would go for, I don't know, WIP is a good one. I'd go for work item age, I think I'd go for.
I like that.
And I'd go for work item age because it's a real-time indicator of performance instead of a lagging one. And I would use it to be able to go, we want to deliver X, our items within an X period of time, right? And then I think you could solve everything else off the back of that. So I think if you're managing it in real time as you go, then I think it would work out okay.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. I don't like to use metrics in isolation, but I think I'd go for that one. I think if I was going to think outside the box, I'd maybe look at some sort of satisfaction metric from like almost a qualitative survey from the actual customer or something like that, and go, is the customer happy with what we're doing?
Mm.
So like, we know that we're producing stuff and getting it out there to the customer, but are they actually happy?
Yeah.
And I think if I was going to go out of the box, that's probably what I'd pick, because then it's a good indicator of what you're delivering is any good or not.
Yeah. Cool. As you sit here, you made me aware that you're going into a new venture or a new chapter.
Yes.
Go into as much or as little detail of the reasons behind that as you want. And what does blah, 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 put my teeth back in. What does that new chapter look like?
Cool. So time for the shameless plug.
Well, yeah.
So
start with the reasons why first, and then plug away.
So
warm us up, flirt with us a bit.
Okay, fine. Well, fine. Okay. Of course, it's been a while since I've had to flirt. MakeTeamsFaster.com.
Be in the show notes.
It'd be in the show notes. Thank you. It's a bit of a response, really, to a lot of the problems that we've discussed already. So you've got teams that don't really understand their performance. You've got management that don't, or say management and leadership, let's say, that don't really understand their team's performance. You've got a whole host of risks associated with that aren't visible, or they're known but not really quantified. And then you've got the whole issue of how do we improve in a way that we can measure, but also that doesn't make people feel like they're being attacked. And so what I provide is an assessment that looks at some basic information from Jira, Azure DevOps, for example, that I can then turn into some standard metrics. I can then benchmark those against industry performance so that you can compare yourself to an actual what they should look like, so you know what good looks like.
And where's that data coming from? The comparative, like the industry standard.
So it would depend on the industry, but for example, I could let's say, for example, I could pull some standard data from Jira as an example. So Jira does provide actually industry benchmarks of what good looks like for things. So, but it would depend. And then we would be able to then go, hey, here are the risks associated with that. And this is all based on the data as well, right? So I'm not interrupting a team as this is happening. Team carries on working. I go, look, here are the risks associated with this. And here's how you can tackle them. And then what we want to basically aim for is achieving that benchmark or surpassing that benchmark. And if you do that, this is what the impact to your output will look like. And I say output and not outcomes because value is in your hands at the end of the day. But one of those things might be, do you measure value? Like, do you measure the value of what you're doing? So we'd be able to then go, this is the impact on your output. And effectively, we can make you faster, make you more efficient by having a bit of a fiddle, but also working with the teams for them to understand and provide you with the answers themselves as well. Because a lot of the knowledge in how to get better actually does sit with the people that have the biggest influence on if you're going to get better or not. Yeah. And so it's about doing that in a way which makes them feel like they're in control of the change and they're fronting the charge for the change instead of them being attacked or thrown under the bus for poor performance. Yeah, which is generally what tends to happen. And then we'd put that in a roadmap, and we'd basically provide standard goals for that. And crack on, work with us if you want to, and if you don't want to work with us, you don't have to. But the assessment is there for you to use. And I feel like I feel so confident about this that we have we even have a sorry you're perfect guarantee, right? So like if we find no risks, you can have your money back. Like sorry you're perfect, like I'm just so confident about it that if we can't find anything, then within 30 days of us getting the data and receipt of payment, have your money back.
So it's data-led consultancy.
100%, yeah.
And when you say we, is this
me for now? Yeah, me for now.
And what was the driver behind setting up shop on your own? I'm always interested in that because it is an interesting conversation, which people are interested in, like the whole like entrepreneurial side of people. There's obviously been a seed there.
Yeah, I think like I think that I have always, ever since I was younger, I've always wanted to be my own boss or have my own thing. And the opportunity just came up and I thought, let's give it a go. I thought about contracting, but I thought, let's be ambitious. And if it doesn't work out or doesn't deliver what I'd hoped, then I can always go into contracting. I know I'll be happy doing that. But I thought I'll be really ambitious. Now is the time. I'm in a really good place at home, which gives me the freedom to feel like I can take the risk.
Always helps
of doing this. Yeah, 100%. Whereas in the past, like that absolutely has not been the case. And I just think like it's a now time to do it. And I can either do nothing and regret it, or I can just put myself out there, deal with the rejection, it not working, and then still have a great career, off the back of it.
And is it a thing as of today, or as of recording, people can go and find it?
As well, by the time this podcast will be live, it'll be up and running. Yeah, absolutely. And
how are you going about marketing it? You got a strategy that people?
This is where we get into the unknowns for me. Really,
okay, right.
It's like I'm not. I have some ideas and some ideas. So like something that I'd really love to do is like, for example, give a listener of this podcast, like they can have a free assessment. So however we need to work it out, but it could be we could work out how to do that.
I'll tell you how. The first person who direct messages you and said, I listened to you on the Everyday Agile podcast, then you mentioned the free assessment. Can have it. How about that?
Fine, perfect.
It's nice and simple.
Absolutely, yeah. That's great.
So DM Tom.
Yeah, great. So my LinkedIn will be in the description.
Yeah.
And yeah, so give away a free assessment. I'm really confident in it. It's going to provide value, just layers of value in this, and yeah, I'm really really happy with it. And yeah, and in terms of marketing, obviously there are people that I know. I've worked, quite a long time now. But there's going to be some level of building new relationships. Doing things like this podcast is obviously going to be great for it as well. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
No pressure.
And yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I just I'm gonna. There's a lot of stuff to work out because I'm now stepping into a territory that's quite unknown for me. As a business owner, I mean, if you had advice for someone starting a business today, what would you say?
I think you're ahead of the game personally, because there's a lot of people in our community industry who haven't got a tangible digital product, an asset.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people will, should aspire to have that because it's off the shelf.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or the intent is for it to be, you can buy 100%. It once and keep selling it. And then people can decide, like you said, they can have this thing that they're buying off the shelf and then they can continue on with it. Yeah. But you've already made something from that.
Yeah.
So I think you're ahead of the game there. And I think just tapping into your network really and having something that is simple to understand. That's why I said it's data-led consultancy.
Yeah.
Like that is what you, on a tin of paint, that's what it is. You're going to take a load of stuff and you're going to help them solve the problem.
Put something in, very little effort for you, and you'll get something back that you can take, you can use, you can understand, and you can run with if you want to.
Yeah.
I also provide facilitation and coaching and stuff like that. And if you want me to do that, then great.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely happy to do that. But if you just want to know your baseline and know how to take your first steps forward, or go, actually, I just need to understand if we move the dial on this, what does that mean for our output? Because that's going to help me ask for more money.
Yeah.
As a business, as a leader in a company, right? Like, go, actually, I can justify the spend on the team, or I can go, we've made X progress because of Y this year as a result of this.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I think it's going to be really, really useful based on what I've seen in my experience of the market.
This time next year, Rodders, be millionaires. Is there anything you've changed your mind about recently that you never thought you would?
This was a really good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I changed my mind like quite a lot on things. I'm like really comfortable with being challenged and like not being right on stuff. That's totally okay. But it's I never thought I would change my mind on it. And I think if I dig into the archives, I think something that I was like used to be really, really mad about was story points. It's funny that you mentioned it earlier on. And I think it's one of those things that and you're gonna have to bear with me with this. This is my thought process.
I've got time.
One of the things I really thought about with this was I hate them, right? Like I hate them.
You've even folded your arms.
Yeah. Like
I'm
mad about it in the room. Like just this coming out of my mouth is making me cross. But I had a moment with some teams like a couple of years ago, and they were like, "Oh, let's do planning poker or whatever," and I was like, "Oh, fucking here we go again." And then they started doing it, and I was like, right, I'm going to actually invest myself in this session instead of necessarily.
Pardon the pun.
Yeah,
invest.
I'm gonna make sure that I'm like paying attention in the session and actually supporting the group with this. I was like, I'm not going to stop you from doing this. If you think it's going to like provide benefit to you, then absolutely fine. And something that we managed to do through the course of the session and therefore implement into the future was they found out that using planning poker was a really good way for them to understand the discrepancies on where they sat around sizing, and then having a really valuable discussion that allowed them to understand and pull out all of the information that they needed to create an accurate assessment of size for the thing. And I say accurate, based on the knowledge that they had. Yeah. The fallout was we're not going to put a story point size on a work item. You still have to answer the question, can you deliver this in a sprint? But the discussion that came as a result of them using story points was it was just a really low barrier to entry for them. So like, I can just put a 5 on it, or I can put an 8 on it, right? And it's like, oh, fucking hell. But they've done that, and then they've gone, well, why are you a 5? It's this. Yeah. And go, why are you an 8? This. And it's just like the barrier to entry with it as like this weird, stupid little number that means nothing is like actually, because they were familiar with it, it was really good for them to crack open all of this discussion that was then super valuable for refining the work item and then answering the question, can you deliver this in a sprint? And then being able to then deliver it more accurately.
Which is the point of refinement, isn't it?
Yeah.
But people fall into the trap of thinking refinement is about estimation. And sometimes, if you are using estimation, fine. Estimation is a byproduct of refinement, where you should be having the conversation is more important.
And so I was like, I hate this thing, but this thing is giving me the discussion that I need to see.
Yeah.
So like, I'm cool with it being used, and that's okay. And so it was this weird moment of me being like, I've been like hating this thing because I think that there are better things out there, but for these people, it's actually really, really valuable for like the conversation. So I'm actually okay with it now with the boundaries set like this.
Yeah.
Like if I ring fence if I create like good boundaries around this practice, I'm actually okay with it being used, and it's fine. And it's a bit like, I don't know, using something in the right way. And I'll probably reference the podcast you did with Michael Lloyd when he spoke about SAFe, because SAFe is like super contentious, right? Like people hate SAFe. And it's the same thing. It's like understanding it and using it in the right way. If people are using something incorrectly, then, of course you're going to hate it. Like it's not going to get you the result you want. But if you use something in a way that's actually gets you the result you want, cool. Actually, I don't care. Like actually.
Very honest. Is there a question I haven't asked, which you, if you're interviewing yourself, you would have asked yourself?
No, I don't think so.
No?
I don't think so. No, I've had a little think.
That's all right. What's next?
What's next is really the business. It's trying to get in front of people, really help them understand the value. There's probably going to be a level of iteration with it. Nothing's perfect, off the ground. And yeah, just maketeamsfaster.com. Just trying to make people just deliver better. I think is really.
That's a good domain. I thought that would. I'm surprised that was available.
I was absolutely shocked, and I was just like, I'm having that.
Is where you tell me you paid £100,000 for
no, it was available. Yeah, .com and .co.uk. I bought both for anyone that's going to go and have a look. But yeah, both available, and I thought, do you know what, I'll have that. And that's lucky.
So yeah, where can people find you? And obviously, one more point people in the direction of where you want them to go.
So LinkedIn, Tom Wissam, if anyone wants to just reach out, chat, whatever. Always happy to make new connections. So that'll be my LinkedIn. Link will be in the description. And maketeamsfaster.com for the 16th time as well. Yeah, if you want to see more about what I'm doing, and also see probably how it evolves. I mean, the website is very Billy Basics at the moment, and I'm sure things will evolve as time goes on. So yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Well, I wish you all luck with it.
Thank you so
I think
much.
there's definitely value in it. If I think organizations give it a chance. Like I said, the first person to DM Tom saying they watched it on here. I'll put it in there when I put the episode out as well. Yeah.
Cheers, Jack.
Cheers.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.